When some of the things were coming up that we might not play games, and this was yesterday, I reached out to the folks at the arena and our folks at the Mavs to find out, what it would cost to financially support people who aren't going to be able to come to work. They get paid by the hour, and this was their source of income. And so we'll do some things there. We may ask them to go do some volunteer work in exchange, but we've already started the process of having a program in place, and I don't have any details to give, but it's certainly something that's important to me.
So what would it take to have you run for president?
I'm excited about next year for the Mavs. It's going to be a great
Come on,
season.
man. Come on, man. Don't get off track.
I don't even want to get into it. I mean, I did one quick interview, and then all of a sudden it blew up. I don't want to feed the beast.
Right.
Like I said, if there's a certain set of circumstances that would push me to do it, but we're not there yet. So if and when it happens, you'll be the first to know, Andy.
Okay, that's very cool. So have you talked to him and given him any advice, or what advice would you give him?
I mean, I'm not a fan of the tariffs. If I understand what he's trying to do in terms of battling China, I would approach it differently, because I think tariffs are a tax on the American people. But at the same time, I think we have a variety of other leverage points. I'll give you the perfect example. Chinese companies listed on American exchanges have a market cap of more than $1.4 trillion. That's a lot of leverage right there. They're raising money via IPOs, something we can't do in China. I'd shut down all Chinese IPOs. Everybody's got something that they're good at, and the hard part is just finding it. And I found out early that I was a good salesperson, that I really liked business. Like I like sports. I mean, I read everything I possibly could, played sports as much as I could, just wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And business was the same way. I mean, as long as I could remember, I was buying and selling baseball cards, garbage bags, whatever I could find, stamps, to collectors. But I was also reading everything I possibly could about business. And, I was that unusual kid that I'd rather read about Ted Turner than go to the movies. And so I think that created a foundation. And my parents, my dad used to always say, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I had my ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just think that I just put in the time and was fortunate enough to really get excited about business, and that paid off benefits over the long run. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be great at something, you've got to make the effort to be great at something. Whether it's sports, whether it's physics, math, science, business, whatever it may be, it's not just a natural skill. You've got to learn, and particularly if you're in the technology industry, because it changes every day.
So what do you do for a living?
I describe myself as a grinder. I just, like we talked about learning, that's a grind, but I love it, and I think I've just learned what I'm good at and learned to focus on those things and try to, utilize those skills to now, not just be an entrepreneur, but probably more often now invest in and help other entrepreneurs.
How do we do it, and what do we do? I don't think we can just go do it the old school way of just rebuilding roads and bridges. Well, we need to look to say, can we do a complete reset? What do we need to do going forward? We've seen what happens when we don't have critical manufacturing here, but you can't just bring over manufacturing and expect it to be competitive. I think we need to invest in robotics as an example. We are not the leader in robotics in the world. So when we talk about infrastructure, we can talk about building the basis for new factories that incorporate robotics and building software. So then we can start bringing over those jobs from China and manufacture the critical PPE and other products that we need to have manufactured here. That's part one. Part two, we're moving, we have to be cognizant of climate change, and we have to be cognizant of keeping emissions low for our future. And so when we talk about rebuilding infrastructure, I think we need to start talking about having self-driving car only lanes in roads. We need to talk about on highways, how do we make sure that self-driving trucks and autonomous vehicles can operate with cross-country carrying and load carrying. We need to look at in cities, how are we going to get people able to trust self-driving cars? So maybe we take a page from Las Vegas and put bridges over the top of roads, so people, rather than crossing the street, well, they'll be concerned about autonomous vehicles put them so they can walk over the top like they do in Vegas. But all these things together really creates infrastructure 4.0, so that we're looking towards the future rather than trying to recreate the past.
You know, the pressure was get a career, go work for IBM or General Motors and get a pension. Those days are gone. People can't even pay their pensions anymore. And so you're a free agent. And you're always going to be a free agent on the market. You guys are the Kevin Durant's and LeBron James, you know, where you're always out there and can go find a better situation for yourself. Do what's best for you. What have you got to lose? Like when I started my company, you know, after I got fired by Michael Umecki, you know, how bad could it be? I would lose my Motel 6 towel, you know? It was just like, what have you got to lose? And yeah, I understand there's pressure from student loans, and there's a lot of conversations we can have there, right? But, you know, you can get a job that doesn't have to be perfect. You can learn at that job, and you guys have the pedigree, you have the brains, you have the initiative to go out and try the next job, you know? The good news is the economy's good enough that it may not be perfect, but you can go job to job. Don't look for the perfect answer. Just look to get the experience, look to learn, because all these different exposures, all the different things you learn, learning how to learn, that's what's going to get you excited and juice you for something that you love. Because once you find something you love to do, that's when the magic happens.